The Strait of Hormuz, a narrow strip of water just 21 miles wide, has the power to destabilize the entire world's economy. But today, I'm not here to talk about geopolitics alone. I'm here to talk about leadership. Just like every nation has some critical asset to protect, every leader and every human has something very important to protect, an important asset, if destabilized, can completely change everything for them. The question is, do you know what your Strait of Hormuz is? Hello and welcome everyone to the Namita Purohit show. I am an exec coach and author, and I'm here to talk about timeless wisdom for modern leaders. I'd request the tech team to put the slides on, please. And so here we're talking about the Strait of Hormuz. For those of you who aren't yet aware, we are in a World War situation with the US attacking Iran. And this is the Strait of Hormuz that I am referring to today. Yes, it's a global energy lifeline. About 20% of the world's oil and a lot of LPG passes through this very narrow strait. It gives access to the UAE, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Iran, Iraq, etc., to global oil markets. And as you see, it's very, very narrow, but it's extremely powerful. And it's very easy to disturb, but very, very hard to replace. Now, if blocked, there are global ripple effects. And as you can see, a lot of the input costs in people's businesses have increased. Just my father's business, all his input costs have gone up by 15%. Yes, so there is rising inflation, there is a global energy crisis, and there is an LPG crisis as we speak. Oil prices are surging, and so many things happening. Yes, and that's what we're all seeing. Now, this is something of great strategic influence for Iran. Now, it's not a strait that's controlled by Iran, it's international waters governed by the International Waters Treaty. But about 14 nautical miles in for Iran and the UAE, they both have control over that part of the water. Now, what happens is because this is so narrow, invariably ships are passing through something that Iran can control, and that's where Iran has created a choke point. Now, why should you listen to me as I speak today? I am not a geopolitical scientist. I'm not a, advisor on political sciences. I don't belong to any think tank. But yes, I am a private coach for CEOs, founders, and entrepreneurs. I run the Lead with Ease Circle, which is a private council for senior executives, founders, and entrepreneurs. I've coached leaders from various different organizations, as you can see, also coach startup founders and entrepreneurs. And what makes me different is that I bring an Eastern lens to my coaching. And I've served millions through the YouTube channel Hare Krishna TV and my own channel. So now what are we going to talk about today? Am I going to talk about the Strait of Hormuz? As I said, no, I'm a coach. I'm an exec coach. I'm a leadership coach. I'm a life coach. So what are we going to talk about today? We're going to draw leadership and personal lessons from this geopolitical situation that we are all observing. So, lessons around vigilance and strategic awareness at a leadership and personal level, similarly for influence and relationships, and also knowing very clearly what is your Strait of Hormuz. So, just like nations must protect strategic waterways, leaders also must protect the core pillars of leadership. And in dharmic tradition, that is called as Kshatriya Dharma. And as you read through the Chanakya Niti, as you read through the Vidur Niti, as you read through Bhishma Pitama's instructions to Yudhishthir in the Shanti Parva of the Mahabharata, there are some very clear tenets that that all of them speak about. And it's that a wise ruler, a wise leader. Now, this also applies not just to senior executives in the workplace or founders and entrepreneurs, but this also is also about leadership at home, leadership in your community. And every leader must understand their own strength, the strength of their allies, the strength of their enemies, and the conditions around them. Now, and the Bhagavad Gita always talks about that you don't shy away from protection, from administration, from your Kshatriya Dharma. And one must do that without any hesitation. And also, we also know that peace comes from strength. Right now, Iran has a negotiating point because of its chokehold on the Strait of Hormuz. Yes? And then there are these verses, this verse from the Ramcharitmanas where Bhai Binu Hoye na Preeti, and also this great philosopher, thinker, and warrior from the ancient Japanese history. And he talks about it is better to be a warrior in a garden than to be a gardener in a war. Yes. So we need strength and we need to know what that leverage point of strength is for us. Are you aware of what your strength point is? Let me know in the comments below. Now, how do you handle such a situation where you have made an assessment? You've understood your allies, you've understood your friends, you've understood the enemy, you've understood what you need to protect and what your strategic asset is. And how do you do that? Is a nice lesson we can get from the story of how, from the Mahabharata, in how the Pandavas take care of Kichak. Now, the Pandavas are incognito in the Mahabharata, the five brothers, they're incognito. That's the time they're incognito. And in the Virat kingdom, King Virat's kingdom. And King Virat's Senapati, or the senior commander of his army, is Kichak, who has won him many, many wars. And he's also the brother of his wife. Now, Kichak has his eye on Draupadi, who's playing the role incognito of being a hairdresser maid, Serendri, to the queen. And many times he tries to make advances to her, tries to molest her, and a lot of times she escapes from his strong embrace. And once she runs into the courtroom and she pleads to the king to protect her. But he says that, yeah, we'll look into it, we'll do something about it, we'll do, we'll take care of it. But she gets extremely aggrieved at this delayed response, and she's still scared about what may happen to her. Yes, now, for the five Pandava brothers, their wife Draupadi is their Strait of Hormuz, their strategic asset they need to protect. Yes. And how do they handle it? They handle it with equanimity, proper thinking, knowing the time without blowing their incognito cover. Yes. And very skillfully, Draupadi gets Kichak to a secluded place where Bhima is waiting, and he kills Kichak. Yes. Now, these are some lessons we all need to learn about knowing what your Strait of Hormuz is in that situation. As I explained, for Iran, it is the Strait of Hormuz. That's their strategic advantage, that's their asset. For the Pandavas in this situation, it was Draupadi, and it was their disguise and their cover, right? So, how did they handle it? They didn't just react to the trigger, they protected the larger mission that they needed to be incognito, and they chose timing over impulse, and they got the desired result. Now, similarly, if you look at it at the corporate level, at the tech leadership level, OpenAI, ChatGPT, was winning the AI war. It has high brand recall. It's where a lot of us started our use of AI assistance journey. And Google seemed to be in the back end. Yes, it didn't seem to be the winner in that piece. It seemed like, oh, wow, this global search engine is now obsolete because now people are not going to search anymore. They're going to go directly to ChatGPT for their questions. Now, Google didn't panic, Google didn't get triggered. Google protected its Strait of Hormuz. Now, what was Google's Strait of Hormuz here? Now, we're talking about leadership, we're talking about tech leadership over here. So, Google's Strait of Hormuz, their strategic uh, asset of importance was their ecosystem dominance that they had across search, Android, workspace, maps, cloud, and billions of dollars of revenue and billions of customers. Yes. Now, what did Google do? Instead of creating another standalone chat GPT lookalike, they took their time. They learned from the errors that they made with Bard, and they built an AI that sits across their ecosystems, and it enhances their ecosystems. It brings more users to their ecosystems. And it also trained its AI really well that it started doing much better than OpenAI in many, many leaderboards for AI. And the result, Google is seen a quiet leader in AI. Google is seen someone who's built their entire full stack and has emerged great even in how their stock is performing vis-a-vis other OpenAI competitors. So that is Google's Strait of Hormuz. So we've talked about at a personal level, we've talked about at a geopolitical level, we've talked about at a company tech leadership level also. And I also want you to consider, what is your personal Strait of Hormuz? What is your strategic advantage that you must protect at any costs? You must enhance at any costs. You mustn't just let anyone use it at any cost, just like Iran is. Fiercely protecting the Strait of Hormuz and keeping its strategic advantage. Something that you must protect, and some infrastructure you've built. You probably built a great product. You have a great startup. Now, how do you protect that without becoming, while getting funding, but without getting beholden to a venture capitalist? Yes, just putting in different angles out there for you to consider. Now, your personal Strait of Hormuz could also be your own self, right? Many people in abusive relationships need to protect their own selves, their inner peace, or your core values that you need to protect in certain situations. Your relationships, and we're going to talk a lot more about relationships as we advance to the next section. Your talents, your aspirations, your reputation, your spirituality. Yes? So, whatever that Strait of Hormuz is for you, the Gita teaches us, and there's wisdom from Chanakya, wisdom from Vidurniti, wisdom from Bhishma. And as we are seeing the scenarios play out in the world today, you want to be vigilant, be very thoughtful, understand what it is, protect it fiercely, don't get triggered, and choose timing over impulse when to act. Now, the second leadership lesson that we want to touch upon today, which is at a corporate leadership level, and it's also at a personal level, is influence. Yes? Now, influence, when you are a person of influence, you can access another person's Strait of Hormuz. Yes? Geopolitics leadership is a very long game, and influences and alliances are what matter more than force. Yes? Now, in the India Iran relationship, there are a lot of things that they don't agree upon, right? Iran has very different views on Kashmir than India. Yes. India is friends with Israel, with the US, which Iran may not like. But at the same time, they have found a way to be connected, to be friendly with the Chabahar port. That's another strategic advantage that both of them collectively have to compete with China and Pakistan, and also with relation to Afghanistan and the current geopolitical situation. So, a lot of Indian ships, as we are seeing and as we are hearing, are allowed to pass with crude, are allowed to pass with LPG, and no, a few may be stuck, but there is a pathway, a clear pathway that Indian ships can pass freely. And one of the senior leaders in Iranic, in the Iran political leadership has announced that no, India is always going to be safe and their ships are going to pass. And that's what been said at least even as soon as 24 hours ago. Yes. So this is the India-Iran relationship. Now, how has India, as a country, built that influence? Does not rush into blocks blindly, does not take aggressive positions, protects its Strait of Hormuz, which is its energy needs, which is its people, its culture, its values, thinks long term, energy, defense, diplomacy, and a lot of relief activities, also serving weaker nations and making partnerships with those nations. And it avoids emotional and reactive positioning. And that also comes because of the great culture and the great values that we have across millennia. Now, when you are a person of influence, and what is influence? That this person is reliable, is visionary, and is worth partnering with. People know about you, they know you are trustworthy, they know you have helped them in their times of need. You know how to build win-win solutions, even with warring family members or in with your team, cascading vision downwards, managing stakeholder upwards. You are a person who can bring win-win situations. You are a person who can be trusted. You are a person of impact. Your biological signal is not weak. That means you're not emotional, you're not overwhelmed, you're not doubting yourself, you're not sure of yourself. No, none of these things. You're strong, you're collected, you have great presence. You're giving a very strong signal. And you know how to not just make structures, but you also know how to cascade your communication and your vision ahead. And that is a person of influence. Now, when that happens, whether it's in your family life or it's at a leadership level, you have so many allies secured, uh, always ready, because your communication and your vision, your friendliness, your bonhomie, everything is translating really well. Uh, and you also have many opportunities open up. People open up their Strait of Hormuz for you. They are ready to share their strategic advantage with you. They're ready to partner with you in various things. An example, if you look at, so whenever there's a crisis, you don't build influence during a crisis. You build influence as a long game, and pre-influence as a long game, so that uh, when there's a crisis, things are happening for you. Things are easier for you. It makes crisis management very easy. And not just crisis, it opens up positively so many opportunities for you just because you're a person of influence. So it helps with that early signaling. And influence is about relationships. And I came across this nice picture by India in Pixels. I saw this on Instagram. And this was about, as you can see, this graph, these are the relationships the Pandavas were able to build that helped them in the war in the Mahabharata. So during their exile, during their when they were incognito, they were able to build all these alliances that you can see in green. And this is fighting against the might of an established kingdom. And it's commendable that they built these alliances that helped them in the war. And even with Virat and Kichak, Virat did not protect Draupadi the way he should have. But the Pandavas did not remember that disagreement. But they thought strategically, they protected Draupadi, and they helped Virat, and Virat helped them in return. So, a lot of times, you're not going to be in agreement with everyone. You may not see eye to eye on a lot of things, but find your common ground, build your relationships, and build your influence, and move further. Now, senior leadership is not about execution. When you are in a CEO role, when you're in a vice president role, when you're a team leader, you're a director, you're a VP, you're growing, taking your company ahead, or you're an entrepreneur or a startup founder, it's not just about execution alone. It's about influence. It's about creativity. It's about owning risk. It's about showing up as a trustworthy person. It's about being not just regulating your own emotion, but regulating the emotion of people around you. This applies even at the family leadership level. Yes. Um, it's not just they're expecting you to do stuff as your leader of your family, but they're expecting you to show clear leadership. Make the right partnerships so that your family is always protected. Make the right connections so that you have people ready, on call when you need them. Um, make the right connections, make the right relationships without manipulation, without politics, but with integrity, so that many opportunities can hold up for your family. Being emotionally regulated your own self, so that your entire family, the emotional contagion spreads, and everyone can be emotionally regulated. So when you're trying to be a leader, it's about influence. When there is no influence, there is no leadership. Now, when influence breaks at a company level, when the leader does not have a company wide influence, as you can see, the Wi Fi signal, the signal they're giving out as a leader is very weak. So many people are failing to connect with the vision. There's lower productivity, lower, it takes longer for things to go to market. There's diluted accountability, lower employee retention, and so on. And leaders quietly start losing trust upstream and downstream. Now, similarly, when you lose influence at a personal level, influence is a gentle power that nurtures and protects your relationships and your family. Yes. Now, you can't live in isolation. You need people. You need to connect with people. And how much are people willing to invest in you is how well in the past you have showed up as a trustworthy person. Yes. Now, at a personal level, when you lose influence, these are some of the things that can happen. There can be emotional distance between people, family members. There can be a lot of power struggles and politics within your family structures, attempts to control assets, attempts to control things, erosion of trust, intimacy. And you can be alone, you're isolated because you haven't built your influence, you haven't built your relationships. And there can be anxiety and sadness and so on. Right. And again, and I repeat, just like we see from India and Iran's relationship, or even with Virat King Virat and the Pandavas, they didn't agree on everything. They were not pleased with each other's behaviors on each and everything. But they found common ground, found a way to partner, and found a way to open up each other's Strait of Hormuz for the other's strategic advantage and their own strategic advantage. So, this is something that needs to be cultivated at a personal level also. People are going to hurt you. You are going to be hurt. You are going to be displeased. You're not going to like how somebody behaved with you. And that's okay. Find what's working and connect at that level with them and build your influence. So influence also has a structure to it, and that's something that I teach my clients, and I'm here to share it with you. And I call it the P.I.E method. So this is a beautiful pie that we have in front of us, and if you're trying to build your influence, you build it as like a pie. And what is the pie? The pie is P.I.E. P is mastery over people, learning how to align with people, understanding their personality types, understanding their inner scripts, understanding their inner motivators, and learning how to build strong relationships with them with small talk, with deep talk, with exchanges of gifts and all of these things, but in a very genuine way, in a trustworthy way. Yes, and that requires awareness and understanding of people and their personality types and their psychology and so on. The second thing is inner mastery is very important for you as you show up as a leader, a strong leader. Yes, and that is your own inner mastery, over your own emotions, over you understanding your own psychological playfield internally. What are your motivators? What are your weak points? What are the places where you get scared? What are the places where you lose it? And learning emotional regulation. Because when you have inner mastery, you show up as a solid person, and that spreads across your family and it spreads across your organization, and it helps you build true influence. You show up as a trustworthy person. And the last is executive presence. And when you have people mastery and you have inner mastery, it naturally lends to a person who, when they walk into the room, like, haven't you seen people when they walk into the room and people naturally accept them as a leader? And that's because they have done that inner work and they have done that relationship building over the years. They have built that influence over the years, and they have subject matter expertise. They have shown leadership in thought, leadership in action. And that's why when they speak, people listen and people agree. And they've also done the pre influence part, they've built the trust beforehand. Yes? So, executive presence is how you show up, how you speak, and how you communicate. These three things. Now, if you want to learn more about influence, uh, use the P.I.E method. Now, what happens when you use the P.I.E method? Your signal becomes very strong. And when your signal is strong, you may have the perfect team and the perfect resources and the perfect data setup and everything. But if emotionally your signal is weak, your company is not going to work, right? So during high stakes pressure, you could have inner collapse. But when you do P.I.E, during high stakes situations, you don't have that inner collapse, you don't have that external collapse, and you're able to lead your organization, yourself, your people ahead really well. And similarly, it applies to your family. Um, because when you have this defensive presence, when your family members are trying to say something to you, you're defending yourself, you're defending your actions, you're not listening, you're not connecting, you're not being the leader they want you to be, it erodes trust, and people don't want to be with you. Yes. So we want to build this influence, and this influence pie, it works across you trying to raise funding for your company, it works across families, it works across cascading visions across teams. And for those of you who want it, can get a copy of my book. It's recently released, and it's also co-published by Tulsi Books, the ISKCON publisher in Mumbai, and it's called Influence to Win. And we have the links for this book, who want to go deeper into the pie and understand each step properly and how it applies to them, along with questions to think about. You could get this book, which has been recently released. The links are available in the description below, and we're shipping worldwide and we're shipping in India. And once you click, you'll find two different links for worldwide versus India. So do that. And lastly, your next step, of course, is to head to the link in the description and make your book purchase. And lastly, as I close my talk here today, before we get into Q&A, is that leadership needs to be backed by dharma. Yes. Now, as you're trying to build your organization, as you're trying to build your team, as you're trying to build your company, as you're trying to build your startup, trying to build your family, you need artha, you need money, you need resources. Now resources come and resources flow when they are dharmically sourced. They flow easily, right? And they stay for a long time. Yes, they may not seem like they're flowing easily. Quick correction, because sometimes when you do a corrupt, you don't follow dharma, resources come in faster. No, they may come faster and they leave faster. Remember, you're dealing with Lakshmi Devi here. And if you're trying to get resources, whether it's people, whether it's protecting your assets, whether it's finances for yourself, for your company, for your family, when you follow dharma, you're pleasing Lakshmi Devi and artha comes in very easily and it stays and it helps you build what you're trying to build. Yes. Also, no dharma is possible without artha. And for artha, you need some of these things that I've talked about. I'm talking about influence, I'm talking about strategic, uh, uh, awareness and understanding where you stand and continuing with that. So your leadership needs to be backed by dharma, and there can be no dharma without artha. And artha also includes all of these things that we've talked about, strategies and how you communicate and how you build your leadership and you build your connections and you take your decisions. Yes. Now, choke points in life, choke points in leadership, choke points in geopolitical crisis can create fear and uncertainty. Yes. Now, those who follow dharma and those who follow the principles of the Gita can endure those difficult situations. When they know how to protect their core, they build their strong influence with Pi, they act with timing and not impulse, and they act with dharma and not responsibility. Because in the end, leadership in those high leadership positions or leadership of your family, it's not about controlling people, it's about mastering your response to the situation, just like some of the countries we are observing in this geopolitical situation have. I close my talk here, and before we get into Q&A, so please post your questions over here, and I look forward to serving you. It's been a pleasure to come back on the Hare Krishna TV. I have run the life coaching with Namita show. I've done at least 100 episodes on that. And I've taken a little break as I was building my coaching practice, going deeper in my own reading and my own spirituality, and moving countries and moving cities and family and resources and new products and so many different things. So I'm really happy to be back here with all of you, and would love your suggestions on what you would like to see in the show. And without further delay, let's move on to Q&A with a short commercial break, I believe is going to happen.
Before a single drop, there is a heartbeat. At Haribol, that heartbeat is never traded for milk. Every cow and bull lives protected lifelong. This is ahimsa. This is kindness. This is devotion. Switch to Haribol Ahimsa A2 milk.
Yes, Haribol Ahimsa A2 milk. And let's look at some of the questions here. And while the questions come in, I'm also acknowledging all the people who've logged in. There is Anil Agarwalji, always a supporter. Thank you so much. There's Ferry 1996G, Ruchi Srivastava. I believe we're connected on LinkedIn. Then there is Abhishek Dubey. I believe on LinkedIn as well. I think so. I think you got my book. That's what I remember. And then there is Pradeep Sao, Anil Agarwal, Nitin Boda, Rajendra Singh Ramola, Prakash Hegde, Mahesh Chandra Tiwari, and Bhaktin Saujanya ji. So yes, thank you so much and nice to have you all here today. Good. Is the Strait of Hormuz crisis some kind of karma thing? Yes, there is collective karma, and I know there's so many astrological angles that are happening. There are so many, on X. I do see a lot of astrologers had predicted that there will be all this global tension. and they predicted dates around the eclipses and the regions where the eclipses were impacting. And then there are so many people talking about karma. And yes, it is a karma thing. And as we understand that there are three types of miseries that one can experience in the material world, and I hope I can remember them at the top of my head. It's Adi Devik, miseries that are caused by natural calamities. Adi Bhautik, miseries caused by other living entities, and Adhyatmic, miseries caused by one's own mind. Now, what we're dealing with here with the Strait of Hormuz and the geopolitical tensions over here uh, is is at an adi bhautik level, miseries caused by other living entities to each other. So there is collective karma that's gotten activated at a particular time. And then there are decisions that people need to be made, things that people need to protect. And sometimes collective karma works together. It's not that some misery has befallen on us, it's a collective karma thing that's working together and things are happening. Yes. So some people, in spite of being in those very difficult situations, find a way to protect themselves and are safe, and some are not. I was just recently reading an X post on X by somebody who, during one of the local train blasts in Mumbai, he was supposed to be in his regular train compartment with all his friends, but he got a little late and he couldn't get into that, and he caught the train running, so he was two compartments behind. And then after the blast, he was the one surviving who had to identify all of his friends who had died. Yes, so some people, in spite of the collective karma situation, have an individual karma that they will be protected in those situations. So yes, you could also look at it from that angle, but that's not the only angle we look at things from. Yes. Next question, please. Bhaktin Saujanya ji, what does Gita say about global tension? Nice, great question. Now, what we've seen is that the entire Gita, the Bhagavad Gita, is spoken on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, Dharmakshetra, Kurukshetra, right? It's spoken on the battlefield. And the idea, at one level, it was about, brothers fighting over a property. At another level, it was about establishing Kshatriya Dharma and protecting the kingdom and the progeny from the rule of kings like Duryodhana. At another level, it was about righteousness. At another level, it was about re-establishing the principles of religion, and that is why Krishna comes, uh, like Sambhavami Yuge Yuge Paritranaya Sadhunam Vinashaya Chadusritam Paritranaya, right? That the Sambhavami Yuge Yuge. So he's descending to re-establish the principles of religion. At another level, it was also about how was Krishna re-establishing the principles of religion. It was by the alliances that were being made. So the ones on the side of dharma had alliances with the Pandavas, and the ones on the side of adharma had naturally aligned with the Kauravas. And then because of the war, the adharmic rulers and the adharmic kings were killed. So when you understand global tension, you want to be able to see it, just like I've explained at the war of Mahabharata. You want to be able to see it at these different levels and understand that these things will happen. And you got to protect yourself, you got to protect your assets, you got to protect your Strait of Hormuz, and go ahead with that. Take care of that. At the same time, you also want to see things from a spiritual point of view, that you're not this body, you're the soul. So while you do what you need to do to protect your nation, to protect your community, to protect your family, at the same time, what you need to do is to also recognize that this is temporary, right? So you don't get overly attached with taking strong positions. You don't get overly attached with risking yourself and your assets. You do protect whatever you need: self-preservation, country preservation, community preservation. And at the same time, always remember your spiritual goal. And that was the message that was given to Arjuna, to fight the war, but understand who he is from a spiritual point of view, from Krishna's point of view. And the same applies to us even in this situation. Thank you for that. Next question, please. Rishi Sharma. How can I apply Krishna's equanimity and detached action practically when my board or investors are pushing for reactive moves in this kind of global uncertainty, like supply chain shocks from Hormuz? Great question. Yeah, there are supply chain shocks, and as I said, many input costs have gone up by 15 to 20% in industries, and it can go up as high as 30%. And that's going to increase the price for everything that we're seeing right now. Now, how do you apply Krishna's equanimity and detached action practically? So, what's happening to you, Rishi, is that your board is probably losing its emotional contagion. Like the senior stakeholders that you're working with, they're losing their emotional regulation. They're getting stressed. They're getting pressured because they have investor pressure. They have shareholder. They want to increase shareholder value. At the same time, they have to make sure that they don't lose customers because of all of this increase in input costs and things like that. So you are finding them to be like they are emotionally reactive, and that they're putting pressure on you to take certain actions. Now, what you want to do is to have that emotional balance in yourself at two levels. One thing is to not get personally disturbed by somebody else's emotional reactions and not taking in that energy. A lot of times, because when we are with people, we naturally end up taking their emotional energy because we are empathic individuals by nature. So that's a skill we want to learn as you are growing in your leadership role. The second thing is the emotional regulation at the time of decision making. So while they are, expecting you to make reactive moves and do certain things, you don't carry that forward. I just recently released a short on my YouTube channel, and you can subscribe to my YouTube channel. The link is in the description below, where I'm interviewing a yoga leader, Eddie Stern, and he talks about that how during crisis situations we don't want to slow down the speed of our action, but we want to slow down the speed at which our mind is processing things. And why do we do that? Because when we go slow, we can notice the details and we can take the right decisions, Rishi. So, bringing that emotional regulation, even at the speed at which you're trying to think through things, is going to help you practice detached action and equanimity in spite of the situation and in spite of the pressure that your stakeholders are creating on you. I hope that helps. Next question, please. Rahul Manna. Any specific daily practice you recommend for executives? Yes. Uh, Not just executives, but everyone. But at the same time, executives, senior leaders are dealing with a lot of high pressure decisions, a lot of stress. I just met a senior leader, and he's very jovial, very happy, takes care of himself well, looks really nice, but is now into beer, specifically Kingfisher Ultra. And it's become too much of an addiction. And then the way they explain it to themselves is, oh, I have so much pressure to handle. I need I need some help. Otherwise, I can't do my job. Now, that's one way to handle it. But another way to handle all the daily pressure, the decision making pressure, the stakes, and everything that you meet, whether you're at a leadership position or even if you're, as a regular layperson, is to practice the principles of the Gita. So that's one thing, is to study the Gita and understand what the Gita has to say, because that's going to bring in a lot of detached action. And when there's detached action, you're calmer and you're able to do better and like truly perform to your potential. The second thing you want to do is to also regulate your body. You want to keep your body in balance. So, proper sleeping times, waking up times, eating, your diet, your breath, exercise. You can't, handle stress. Just, if you're like, oh, I'm going to be spiritual, but I don't want to balance my body. No, you want to keep your body in balance, right? So, first thing is studying the Gita, keeping your body in balance and regulated. And thirdly, it's also about meditation. I specifically do mantra meditation, and at Hare Krishna TV, we talk about chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. So that helps you the Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. When you chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, it helps you remind yourself of your true identity. And it also helps you make a strong connection with the divine. And when you make that strong connection with the divine, you are protected by divine energy, and you are emotionally regulated also, because spiritual connection enables detachment, detached action, and it keeps you blissful. So, these are three daily practices that I would like to suggest to some people who are in high pressure situations and who would like to take care of themselves better so that they can perform and handle the situations better. Yes, next question, please. I believe there is somebody has asked a question कि हमको हिंदी इंग्लिश नहीं आता तो क्या हम क्वेश्चन नहीं पूछ सकते? नहीं, आप संदीप जी आप क्वेश्चन पूछ सकते हैं, आप लिख सकते हैं यहाँ पे। अ, लेकिन अगर टॉपिक के साथ रहेंगे क्वेश्चंस तो हमारी यही आपके से विनती है। Yes, Tiwari ji is asking another question. How do I get real courage when I'm scared of failing big? Yeah. In a crisis like this, how do you decide when to protect your personal Strait of Hormuz versus stepping in to lead aggressively? Okay. Can you bring the main question? Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for that. Now, where does courage come from? Courage comes from when you're trying to perform in the world, when your actions are performatory, like when you're trying to perform to get validation or to get approval, etc., you are going to have massive fear of failure, right? Another reason you can have massive fear of failure is when your risk is not managed well, when you're putting too much at risk, and that creates a courage problem. Yes. So, in my mind, if you know how to handle these things, if you're not doing things as a performance, you're doing things because you want to do them and you believe in them, then that releases you from the fear of failing big. So what? I failed. At least I tried. Yes, and I fail all the time. And I have public failures. Yes, Elon Musk has public failures. If you look at Elon Musk and he's launching a rocket, he's launching some SpaceX thing, and it's on Twitter, it's on X, and like everyone's watching it. There's news about it, and then like it goes up and then it goes boom. It's a public failure. And there's so many people who are going to comment on it, etc., but he doesn't care. He's not doing it for performance. He's doing it because he wants to do it, and he understands failures help you learn better about what needs to be fixed and take it ahead, right? So first thing is release yourself from this performance thing. You're not doing it for a performance. You're doing it because you believe in it and you want to test your own limits and you want to do what you want to do. You want to test your creativity. Yes. The second thing is also about not putting too much at risk, understanding and learning how to manage your risk really well. I was coaching a founder, an entrepreneur, and he somehow he got a high when he would put his company through massive risk. And it was like, joy for him. It was exhilarating. The whole adrenaline rush he got out of it was just fun for him. But at the same time, it put his company and his people under tremendous pressure. And then he would have sleepless nights. And then he would need more coaching sessions with me. Yes. Now, as we understood, worked further on managing his risk appetite and reducing his risk appetite and reducing all those things that he was putting at stake, putting the critical things safe and, managing the risk really well. So that helped him be courageous, and that helped him be calm in those situations. Yes. Now, another thing is in a crisis like this, how do you decide when to protect your Strait of Hormuz versus aggressive decisions versus stepping into aggressive risk? Uh, in every situation, you want to be comfortably uncomfortable. Yes. So you want to push the envelope. You want to push beyond your comfort zone, but you want to be comfortably uncomfortable. Yes. And you want to know that this is something absolutely I am not going to put at risk. I'm not going to put at stake. This is something I'm going to absolutely protect. Once that is safe, everything else is okay. Okay, I have, this 10% of it I can play risk with, 90% I'm going to protect. Now, whatever that risk appetite is, yes, then be aggressive. Once you safeguarded what you need to safeguard your Strait of Hormuz, it's extremely important. If you don't do that, you're going to be stressed and you won't be able to function. So once you protect your Strait of Hormuz, the remaining, go for it. Be aggressive. Uh, according to your nature. Yes. Next question, please. How to protect small children from the trauma of war going on? Um, as a human being, even as adults, we're not capable of processing so much news of calamities around us, and so many videos and so many gruesome things that we see because of social media. Everything is captured and everything is shared, and then we see everything, right? We're not meant to process so much calamity and so much sadness around us. Yes. So reduce how do you reduce the exposure to those things? Now, you may say, Shashi, that no, in my family, uh, the news is on 24/7. I can't do anything. I can't keep my children away from that. Yeah, point taken. So while you want to reduce the consumption of these calamitous news items, the second thing is, if you're exposed to it, how do you help children understand the temporary nature of the world and what is real and what is eternal? Now, in these situations of calamity, in these situations of difficulty and trauma and war, what you want to help your children find and yourself find also is permanence, right? It's like when you go to the temple and you see Radha Gopinath, or you see Radha Neelamadhav in Seattle, or whichever temple you go to, no matter what is going on, the deity is there, their routine is going on, the artis are going on, and they are available for you with that smile and with that grace and with that mercy, right? So help children connect with permanence, right? And the best is help them connect with permanence instead of in the sense of God, in the sense of spirituality, and in the sense of their eternal nature. Also, help them understand the war, help them understand the strategies in place, right? So when you're scared of something, the best way to overcome fear is to understand it better. Help them understand why people fight. Help them, and we're not giving a leftist liberal view to fight. We have Kshatriya Dharma as a part of our Vedic system. Help them understand why sometimes fighting is important to protect your Strait of Hormuz. And if you join this talk late, watch this talk so that you can talk to your children, right? So when they're fearing something, it's best to confront it, it's best to talk about it. And it's best to help them feel calm also at their emotional level, to help them handle their emotions, to help them name their emotions and do the feel, breathe, comfort that I talk about in so many of my videos. You can also watch that on my channel where I talk about 3 steps to release anxiety. It's a very short video. So help them name their feelings, help them breathe easy, and help them comfort themselves, right? So we've talked about permanence, we've talked about understanding the war and strategy and why things happen, and helping them understand this is the reality of the world, reducing the exposure, and also helping them manage their emotions. Yes. Next question, please. So we have motor jockey Rajat, and he's talking about how does Gita help leaders stay calm when everything is going crazy, like the Strait of Hormuz right now. I think kind of talked about it, but how does the Gita help you stay calm? Because if you read the 9th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, you understand the way the material world has been set up, the workings of the material world. You understand you're different from the material world. You're not spirit. You're not matter. You're spirit. You're here to play a role for whatever role has been given to you by God as a family person, as a social person, and in a leadership position. And you do your role to the best of your ethics and ability, just like Arjun. Arjun was in a crazy war situation. He lost his calm. But by hearing the entire Gita, he was able to fight valiantly. And we all have to fight our war. We all have to fight our Strait of Hormuz. We all have to fight our, difficulties. Now, just like Arjun. So, learning the Gita, understanding the principles of the Gita, understanding your permanent eternal nature versus the temporary nature of all these things that happen, and also remembering that, 5 years ago, you were extremely stressed about something. You don't even remember what it is. Like, I have a client This client gets extremely disturbed about something, starts texting me. And earlier I used to respond really fast, and nowadays I don't, because I know that this client is going to forget about this thing tomorrow, and they're not going to focus on it. So these things are temporary. We get emotionally disturbed because we're trying to protect something, or our name, our fame, our reputation, our relationships, or whatever. And then we fear that, oh no, I don't have power over this. Yeah, we don't have power over anything. We're not the controllers, and that's one of the things that the Gita helps you understand, is you have no power over anything except your response to it. So learning these principles, and also seeing some of these concepts that I've talked about in answer to these earlier questions, um, can help. Yes. Okay, next question, please. Do we have any more questions? I see a question here. There is Tej before E. What happens to those in afterlife and in this life who insult and mock God? Is there any hope for them if they do prayashchit? Now, I'm just trying to pull up the verse here, and it's in the 16th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. So give me a minute as I do that. So one thing is, God is not a person who gets personally offended if somebody insults God, or somebody. Krishna is not like that. Yes. So he's not going to get personally offended or insulted if somebody abuses him, or somebody mistreats him, or somebody disrespects him, criticizes him, and things like that. Right. The sun is continuing going to shine for these people. They're still going to get their resources, and they're still going to get whatever they deserve, the good and the bad. So God does not personally intervene in these type of things, because God is Atma Ram. He's self-satisfied. So he's not a reactive person. Yes. But at the same time, someone who is insulting God, let me get to your question again, who's mocking God or who's insulting God, is someone who hasn't taken shelter of the Lord's divine energy, right? And in the 16th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, you can see that Krishna talks about how those who are not taking shelter of the divine energy, but they are on the side of demoniac nature, uh, asurim prakriti, they because they've taken shelter of those other things, and some of them don't possess a lot of good qualities. I'm not saying all of them. Like, there are some atheists who are good natured also, but most of them who are into insulting and mocking, they tend to develop other asuric qualities also, or they tend to have other asuric qualities also, like pride, prestige, lust, anger, false ego, that I'm the guy, I did everything. Ishwaro ham aham bhogi, jivo ham balavan sukhi. From me comes everything. I've done this charity work, I've done this big thing, I've done that, right? So they don't recognize the controller. Yes. Now, when you don't recognize that there is a controller, there is a provider, um, that is facilitating all of these things, you tend to develop arrogance, right? Now, when a person becomes arrogant, and they become, their whole focus becomes about gratifying their senses, then, as Krishna says, they become perplexed by various anxieties, and I'm quoting 16 chapter 16th verse Bhagavad Gita here, and they're bound by a lot of illusions, a lot of moha maya, and they become very strongly attached to sense enjoyment, and they fall to hell, right? So, and then they're perpetually cast into similar lifetimes, and where they can fulfill this nature of theirs, and they're cast into further lower species sometimes, where they don't have the body does not have the facility for intelligence the way a human being has, to express their intelligence the way the human being has. All souls are intelligent, and then they are protected from further abuse and further mockery of God. And then, as they gradually come to the level of realization that, no, there is a controller, there is a provider, somebody I need to respect, there's someone higher than me, then they gradually start developing the divine qualities again. So it's about every individual's journey. So what I want to say is that it's not that God mocks God punishes the person. Hey, you disrespected me, and I'm going to punish you. It doesn't happen like that. What happens is that a person with those kind of tendencies tends to develop all these other negative qualities, which causes them to be born in hellish situations because of their nature and their activities. And and they can perpetually be born in those species and those situations. Or if they decide to change themselves, or they get agyata sukriti from a devotee, or they get some prasad from a devotee, then their higher faculties are enabled again, and then they again start seeking the path of God, and they take shelter of daivim prakriti versus asurim prakriti. Hope that helps. Next question, please. How to do prayashchit for Namaprad and Vaishnav Aparadh? Well, there are some various things that are recommended in the scriptures. For Namaprad, you made a mistake. Uh, there are books you can read by Bhurijan Prabhu, and also Mahanidhi Swami, Sachinandan Swami, on the art of chanting Hare Krishna. And even I believe there's a compilation by Haridas Thakur that these three Swamis talk about in their books on chanting Hare Krishna, that you can read to really understand how to help yourself in Namaprad. The point is that you've done it. Now, the only way is to stop doing it. And the way to stop doing it is to examine your tendencies as to why you're doing it. What that inner nature is, what those urges are, what those desires are, because of which you're engaging in Namaprad. And then working at a psychological level on those things, and also praying for the mercy of the holy name itself, the one that you have hurt, and the one that you have offended, or spoken badly about, or insulted, or criticized. It's like, and I think Burijan Prabhu talks about in his book that when a child is learning how to walk, the child is going to fall down multiple times. And when the child is going to fall down multiple times, how does the child get up? The child falls on the floor and hurts, it kind of hits the floor and disturbs the floor. But the very floor that it has fallen down on is the support that it needs to rise up again. So again, praying deeply to, as you work on yourself and work on your chitta and all these anarthas that you have. Now, anartha nivriti is not some magic, detergent dala और सब साफ हो गया. नहीं, उसको रगड़ना पड़ता है थोड़ा. So when you are anartha nivriti, the process is to actually examine your deepest desires, your own psychology, your urges, and everything, and work on them systematically. Make a goal. I'm working on I tend to get angry and upset when things don't go my way, and I want to change that in myself, and actually working, getting coaching, getting support also if needed to work on yourself. So making a systematic plan to work on those things, those urges that are causing you to do namaprad, and taking shelter of the nama, the holy name itself, and praying for its mercy also to protect you from committing further offenses, and then reading these books. Vaishnav Aparadh, the best thing is to I believe there is some lag here. Let me check. Okay, now it's okay. I have to fix this issue. So how do you Vaishnav Aparadh is about when you are insulting, when you have demeaned a Vaishnav, when you've judged them, when you've criticized them, when you've made fun of them, we've disrespected them. And the best thing is to seek their forgiveness. Change your behavior, understanding what anarthas in you caused you to behave like that. Was it competition? Was it jealousy? What was it? Working on that stuff, right? And then also working on those aspects in you, because if you don't work on those aspects, you're again going to do the same thing. There's no point in just seeking forgiveness when you keep repeating the same behavior, right? And then sincerely seeking forgiveness from that Vaishnava for your behavior. I had someone who, like, I'm exposed when I'm doing a show like that. And then, when I was doing the live coaching with Namita show, I was pretty exposed, and I had all kinds of people writing all kinds of messages to me. And I had one person who was pretty abusive, and pretty consistently abusive, and publicly criticizing me. I'm not saying I'm a Vaishnava, but in just general relationships, that's what kept doing. And then one fine day he apologizes to me, and then I'm nobody to be offended or to be apologized to, but I observed that, I acknowledged that. And then a few months later, it's the same behavior started again. So I was like, okay, this person knows the concept of not to criticize, but they can't deal with that urge of whatever they have that they haven't worked upon. And there could be competition, ego. I don't know what that was, or maybe they didn't like my face. I don't know what it was. right? So you got to work on your internals, and then the externals follow. And seeking forgiveness from the Vaishnava you have offended. Now, if you're too scared to do that, I would highly encourage you to do that. It's very purifying, and Vaishnavas are very kind, and they are merciful, and they are forgiving. Or they may say something to you, yeah, I didn't like how you behaved with me, and you were pretty bad, and be ready for it. You hurt them, so be ready for it and let them get their outlet out, and be strong and listen to it. But sometimes, there may be distance, or the person may have passed away, or the timing may not be right. And in those sense, every day you can seek forgiveness from the Vaishnavas after your daily chanting and your puja. You can seek forgiveness internally from them. That I'm really sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. And gradually develop the mood and cultivate that you can overcome your ego and like really fall flat, Dandavat with straw in your teeth, and fall flat and seek their forgiveness. Yes. I think we have time for a couple more questions, please. So we'll do that and then we'll end. And then if you like the show, please like it. Please hit subscribe on the Hare Krishna TV channel. Also, subscribe to my YouTube channel. The link is in the description below. And you have ways to connect with me all there in the channel, and also get in the description, and also the link to my book, Influence to Win, available for worldwide shipping. So please subscribe to the channels, and please share this video with your friends across WhatsApp, or across your social channels, so that they can all benefit from this beautiful wisdom being shared here today from our scriptures. Yes, Anju Thakur, what advice would you give to mothers to lead their children for their better future? For mothers to become self-loving, self-partnered, and sure of themselves. The more the mother, it's like you feel you're raising children, but you actually need to raise yourself. And the more you raise yourself and your consciousness, the better you are going to get at raising your children. So a lot of times we see certain patterns in our children, and we try to fix that pattern. But a lot of times you have that pattern, and when you work on yourself and on that pattern, automatically your child learns differently. So children learn more by observing you and how you're handling yourself. So work on yourself, and work on leading yourself. Wish you all the best, Anjuji. Okay, do we have time for, or do we have one more question? Just checking the comments here. All right, then. So I guess we're closing on the questions here today. I believe there's a little bit of a lag, and I'll find a way to fix it. I thought I had fixed it, but it's not fixed. But we'll find a way to fix it. And thank you all for being here today. As I said, please subscribe to the Hare Krishna TV channel. Please subscribe to my channel, and there are ways you can connect with me and also get the book. And please give your donations to the Hare Krishna TV channel also, to support this wonderful endeavor of how spiritual knowledge is being disseminated by this channel across the world. So thank you very much, and see you, and bye-bye. And I'm going to check my email now to see who all have ordered the book, and I'll be happy to ship it to you. Thank you, and bye-bye.